Thank you for joining me for my American History Notes, where I discuss conclusions I've drawn from studying American history, reading trusted historians, primary sources that they bring up, letters, news articles, newspaper articles, laws, journals, things like that, eyewitness accounts, and that's available to me that I can check on, see what they've said, and if it draws the same conclusions as warrants the same conclusions as the historians. Um, and then you won't necessarily agree with everything I say or my conclusions, but you should at least know about the events I discuss. And I've been reading from a paper I wrote. I self-published on academia.edu, so it's not peer-reviewed. It is my personal opinion, and that nobody's looked it over and said, "Hey, you're wrong here, you're wrong there." So you might do that. But we're talking about, why did Southerners who were Baptist and white, why did they go from generally being against slavery to being for it as a beneficial institution? What happened? We've been discussing that. So I hope you go back and watch some of the other ones. But we're going to talk about now the biblical, how they used the Bible to justify slavery. Um, and I'm going to go start with it right now. In understanding any text, the most important and first thing that must be grasped is what the text literally says. Sorry about the cat. Um, that is its meaning. In order to gain an understanding of the relationship of the Bible justification of slavery, or for that matter, domestic abuse, capitalism, communism, or any other idea a person wants the Bible to justify, it is important to note a couple of things. First, the God of the Bible did not create culture or civilization. Those are the products of man's behavior and interactions with his fellow man and the earth itself. The God of the Bible modifies man's systems of interaction, the world, as in today's references to the world of sports, the world of politics, and the world of business. In addition, it is important to note that the word used for a slave or bondservant throughout the English Bible, which slave owning Americans would have used, is typically servant. The word slave is used twice in a derogatory sense. However, there is no question that slavery, as a consequence of war and other reasons, existed in the ancient world of the Old Testament, and that the God of the Bible modified its practice for the ancient Hebrews specifically. As an example, see Leviticus 25:6, where mention is made of a servant and a hired servant. Um, and back to when I was discussing meaning, I would recommend you read E.D. Hirsch's book, Validity in Interpretation, from Yale University Press, 1967. Um, so anyway, there was there is no question that slavery was common in the Roman world of the New Testament, and that Paul regarded it as irrelevant and told the Christians specifically to accept his or her position and be obedient to his or her master. And that is in 1 Corinthians 7:20, verse 20 and 22, Ephesians 6:5-8, Colossians 3:22-24. So there, however, is no mention of race, as in differentiation of social status or exclusivity of the servant master relationship by skin color in the Bible. These are things imposed on the Bible by the reader, as there is a great deal of interpretation and changing of literal meaning between the printed pages and the eyes, and a manner of speaking. In that figurative space is where interpretation lies. The Baptists, who initially either condemned the institution of slavery outright or demanded that slaves be treated more humanely, eventually included slave owners in their midst who demanded control over their slaves' religious practices, leading to separate black congregations, and who eventually changed the tone of the Baptist voice towards slavery, and rather than challenging, accepted it. And that you can look at that up in Hireman's Southern Cross, page 69. As Baptists had to deal with a contradiction with Pauline theology and racial slavery, as evidenced by the Bible quote, which I began this paper with, Galatians 3:28, a justification of slavery commenced, using the Bible as a propaganda tool. With Baptists now including Southern gentry as adherents and assuming notions of Southern honor, these justifications became easier to accept, as a unique theology of the Bible was created based on those notions of honor and biblical themes. I recommend you to read Stephen R. Haynes' Original Dishonor chapter in Noah's Curse, The Biblical Justification of American Slavery, from Oxford University Press, 2007. Specifically, the passages of the Bible reporting that the entire Earth's population came down from the three sons of Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Ham's disrespect of his father, the appearance of Ham's grandson, Nimrod, on the plains of the future Babylonia, and the curse upon Ham's son, Canaan, fulfilled literally during Bible times, were the focus of the propaganda. Although there is no mention of race anywhere near those verses, or anywhere else as a social division in the Bible, some Bible commentators in history named Ham as the progenitor of the black African races, even though he's also the father of people inhabiting what became Palestine, as well as Babylonia and Egypt, not just Ethiopia. The curse upon Ham's son for a fairly non-specific crime against Noah was then pushed back from Canaan, who suffered under former slaves, the Hebrews, invasion of Palestine, to Ham himself, and then to all of his presumed future offspring, the presumed historical black race. Although Baptists and other evangelicals claim to believe the Bible literally, they had little problem with the fanciful interpretation resulting. Just as a Baptist leader, John Leland, stated in his earlier disgust with slavery, although he too later modified his opinion, so did Baptist leaders express an approval of slavery very publicly and emphatically within 50 years of Leland's remarks. Influential Baptist Richard Fuller, in an ongoing published debate with a Northern Baptist notable, Francis Whalen, wrote in the 1840s, the justification for slavery was intermingled with paternalistic demand only that the slaves be treated kindly, as mentioned previously. And I'm quoting from what he said. One of the things he said was, slavery may be a sin and may be rendered so by the manner in which the present master obtained his power, or by the abuse of that power, or by the means employed to perpetrate that power. But supposing there is no sin, as there is manifestly none, in being the heir or legatee of this power, then the use of it may be most virtuous. In all cases where slaves are unprepared for liberty, and the master's authority is exercised for their truest benefit, temporal and eternal. And that's from Fuller and Whalen, the collection of their letters, Domestic Slavery Considered as a Scriptural Institution, page 164. Excuse me. Several authors have noted the cultural pressures on Southern evangelicals, especially Baptists, in regard to slavery. Anne Loveland noted the impact, I'm quoting, the impact of the abolitionist crusade and the discovery, quote unquote, of the spiritual argument in favor of slavery were crucial. Equally important was the experience of living in a slaveholding society and owning slaves. And I'm quoting Anne Loveland, Southern Evangelicals and the Social Order, and that's Louisiana State University Press, 1980, page 188. Another author estimated in 1837, Baptists owned 115,000 slaves. And that's from Mary Burnham Putnam's The Baptists and Slavery, 1840-1845. So I'm going to kind of draw a conclusion next. I'm going to evaluate that the facts that I've gathered next, and then we'll do a conclusion, and then we'll move on to other topics. All right, thank you for watching, and I hope you study this for yourself.